Trump finds his former high school teacher working at Walmart. His response stuns her. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? It was Friday evening, 7:20 p.m. Trump didn't need anything from Walmart, didn't even like the place. The lighting, the smell of plastic, the wide aisles filled with people not looking at each other. It all felt beneath him. Still, something made him tell the driver to stop, said he wanted to stretch his legs. But now that he was inside, Donald Trump wasn't walking. He was drifting, past self-checkout, past the dusty rotisserie chickens spinning under yellow heat lamps. Something pulled at him, though he couldn't name it. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the way the air inside smelled like home goods and loneliness. He turned down an aisle of lamps, noticed one flickering, and then he heard the voice. "Careful with that box, sweetheart. The base is loose." It was soft, worn, but still sharp, still hers. He turned toward the voice like a man waking from a dream. She was adjusting a display shelf, thin, a little hunched, gray hair clipped back in a no-nonsense knot, her blue vest bunched at the shoulder seam. Her name tag read Helen, but he already knew that. He knew before he saw it. Mrs. Chapman, history teacher, Queen's Military Academy, taught with her sleeves rolled up and never accepted a late paper. She once called him the most brilliant boy who never finishes the race. That was 50 years ago. Now she was straightening curtain rods at Walmart. She looked up, and their eyes met. She squinted, confused. Then her brow lifted, just slightly. "Donald?" she said. He hadn't expected her to recognize him. He hadn't expected this at all. "Yeah," he said. His voice came out rougher than it should have. "It's been a while." She didn't smile, but something softened in her face. "Well, this is the last place I thought I'd see you." He nodded, awkward. Looked down at a brass desk lamp that had no bulb. "Same." He wanted to say something clever, some throwaway line, but his mind felt slippery, untethered. "You work here?" he asked finally. She tapped her name tag. 3 days a week. Gets me out of the house." He looked at her hands, still square-fingered, still moved with purpose. One thumb was wrapped in a small beige bandage. "I thought," he began, then stopped. "I guess I thought you'd retired." "I did," she said. "Retired from being useful. That got boring quick." Her voice hadn't changed, still steady, still no interest in flattery. Trump let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. There was a pause, then she looked at him, really looked. "You seem tired," she said, not unkindly, just an observation. He didn't answer, just stared at the base of the lamp. It was dusty, a fine line of rust curled around the bottom rim. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said, quietly. She waited. "About how things turn out, whether it's because of who we are or what we missed." He didn't know why he said that. She reached for a price sticker on the shelf, peeled it off, smoothed it down again. Something she used to do at her desk, adjust things while waiting for students to speak. "You always had a way of making things go your way," she said. He nodded. "Yeah, maybe too much." Another silence, not uncomfortable, just full. He studied her vest, noticed a fray in the stitching, probably from leaning against boxes. Her shoes were orthopedic, worn smooth at the sides. "You remember that paper I wrote?" he said suddenly. "On the Monroe Doctrine." She smiled, faint, almost wistful. "You mean the one you copied off your brother?" He let out a real laugh this time. "You called it a shallow echo of someone else's work. I still remember that." She tilted her head. "You were better than your shortcuts." He swallowed. I'm not sure I was. She didn't argue, just looked down the aisle. A family passed by with a screaming toddler. Mrs. Chapman stepped aside politely, smiled at the mother, then turned back to him. "You know what I remember?" she said. He raised an eyebrow. "You used to tap your pencil when you didn't know how to start an essay. 3 quick taps, then nothing. Every time." He looked away, embarrassed. "You were always louder than your thoughts," she added gently. Trump felt his face flush. Not in anger, in something closer to shame. "I didn't come in here for anything," he said. "Not really." "I figured," she replied. He looked at her, and suddenly he saw not a teacher, not an employee, but a woman. Aging, alone, maybe, proud, still showing up, and himself, aging too, still loud, still trying to win something he couldn't name. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a pen. Not a fancy one, just a black ballpoint. Clicked once, held it out. "Write the name of your book." She blinked. "What?" "You wrote one. I remember hearing about it. Local history of Queens, right?" Her face changed, like a light had been turned on inside her. "How did you—" "You mentioned it once," he said. "Back then, nobody listened, but I did." She hesitated, then took the pen, slowly, pulled a piece of scratch paper from her pocket. Old receipt, coffee-stained, wrote in slow, deliberate letters, "Helen Chapman, The Corners of Queens." He took the slip, folded it carefully. "I'm getting it into every library in the borough," he said. Quietly, no press, just because. She stared at him, not with awe, not even surprise, just a long, still look, like a teacher watching a student finally finish a sentence. "You don't have to do that," she said softly. "I know," he paused, "but I need to." She nodded once, the kind of nod that ends a conversation with grace. Then, almost without thinking, he reached forward, touched her shoulder, just lightly, a moment. "You were the last person who told me the truth when I didn't want to hear it. And you were the first who thought hearing it was a punishment." That one stung, but it was fair. He gave a small smile. She didn't return it, but her eyes did. He turned to go, took a few steps, then stopped, turned back. "You ever wonder," he asked, "what might have changed if I'd actually listened?" She took a breath, thought about it, then said, "I wonder more about what still could." "Before we move on, let us know where you're watching from." The car was waiting outside, engine humming low. But Donald Trump didn't get in right away. He stood by the glass doors of Walmart, receipt in hand, the hum of traffic a dull thread behind him. He stared out into the parking lot like he'd forgotten what came next. Inside his coat pocket, he could feel the folded paper from Mrs. Chapman. Helen Chapman, The Corners of Queens. Her handwriting was just as he remembered, angled, no loops. A teacher's hand, shaped by chalk, red pens, and 1,000 student essays. He hadn't felt this kind of stillness in years, not since his brother died, not since the world got loud. Back in the store, aisle 9 was returning to normal. A boy was tugging at a lava lamp box while his dad talked on the phone. A woman was checking curtain sizes. Life moved on, and yet something had shifted. Not out there, in here, inside him. He turned back, walked in. Mrs. Chapman was at the end of the aisle, kneeling slightly to restock nightlights, her hand pressed to the small of her back. She didn't hear him at first. "You shouldn't be doing that," he said. She glanced up, surprised. "I'm not that fragile, Donald," he smiled. "You were always stubborn. And you were always late to the point." He stepped closer. "There's a fundraiser," he said. "Upstate, tomorrow night. I speak, shake hands, leave." She looked confused. "And?" I want you to come. She blinked. I'm not a donor, or a fan, necessarily. He nodded. That's why I asked. She considered him, eyes narrowed, reading between lines the way she always had. Why now? She asked. Why me? He paused. His fingers brushed the price tag on a floor lamp beside him. Let it turn, slowly, back and forth. You're the only person who ever wanted me to do better, without needing something in return. She didn't answer, just stood up, slowly, winced slightly as she did. He noticed. They walked to the small break room near the back. She offered him coffee, weak, warm, poured into a styrofoam cup. He sat, looked around. The walls were corkboard and old flyers. Someone's kid had drawn a crayon picture of a rainbow taped near the microwave. She watched him as he sipped. You really think a room full of donors wants to see me? I think I want to. He set the cup down, flattened his palm on the table. You asked me what could still change. She nodded. He hesitated, looked up. I'm tired, Helen. It came out smaller than he expected. Not of the job, not of the noise, of pretending I don't care what people think. She didn't speak, just watched him the way she did when a student finally stopped bluffing. I built a tower so I didn't have to feel small, built a country around my voice, but some nights I still hear yours, saying I can be better. Her eyes didn't soften, but they stayed on him. He looked down. I came in here today because I was trying to feel real again. A silence fell between them, but this one felt earned. Finally she said, I'll come. He looked up, surprised, but not as decoration, not to be paraded. No, he said quickly, not that. Then let me speak too, she said. 5 minutes, no script. He blinked. You want to speak at the fundraiser? I want to speak to you. A long beat. Then he nodded. Deal. The next night was rain-slick and cold. A black SUV pulled up outside the lodge. Warm lights glowed through tall windows. Inside, the air buzzed with voices, glasses clinking, the soft hum of wealth. Trump stood near the entrance, tie slightly crooked. He hadn't fixed it. Helen Chapman walked beside him in a pressed gray coat. The only jewelry she wore was a small gold pin, a compass, that used to sit on her desk. He offered her his arm. She took it. People stared, of course. Whispers sparked. But he didn't care. Not tonight. They took the stage together. He spoke first, briefly. A few lines about leadership, about the past. He kept it short. Then he stepped back, and Mrs. Chapman took the mic. She didn't smile, didn't joke, just looked out at the room, her hands resting on the podium like she was back in room 204 in Queens. I once taught a boy who never let silence do its work. A few people chuckled. He had a gift for filling space, always the first to speak, the last to sit still. She paused. But gifts are funny things. If no one teaches you how to use them, they turn into shields, weapons, or distractions. She looked at him, just for a second. That boy is now a man. He's done many things, some right, some wrong. But tonight, he did something rare. He listened. The room was quiet. And in listening, she said, he reminded me that it's never too late to learn. Then she stepped down. No applause, just stillness. And then, one slow clap, then another, then more. But Trump wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at her. She reached his side. He leaned in. Still stubborn? He whispered. She smiled, just once. So are you. Later, after the crowd had thinned and coats were being fetched, he found her outside. She stood near the railing, looking out at the wet trees beyond the lodge. Rain dripped from the awning in a slow, steady beat. He stood beside her. You know, he said, When I walked into that Walmart, I thought I was just killing time. And I think time's been trying to kill me." She chuckled softly. "But not tonight." "No," he said. She looked at him. "You'll forget this moment, Donald. The world you built doesn't let you keep many quiet ones." He nodded. "I know. But don't." Her voice was firmer now. "Don't forget that you can come back to it." He studied her face, the rain, the trees, and in that quiet, heavy moment, something in him settled, not fixed, not transformed, but quieter, less alone. When she left, she didn't say goodbye, just touched his arm and walked to her cab. He stood there, watching the taillights disappear into the trees, then turned toward the building and the noise waiting inside. But before he went in, he slipped a folded paper from his pocket, the receipt she'd written her name on, pressed it flat, and put it in his wallet, behind everything else. Have you ever had someone show you who you really are, without needing anything in return? If you've had a moment like this, we'd love to hear it. Do subscribe to Elite Stories USA for more upcoming stories, and do let us know in the comments section where you're watching from.